Today we have the 2021 Toyota Camry and the 2021 Honda Accord. These have been and still are two of the best-selling family sedans. Both have mild refreshes for year 2021, and these are both the base models. For $26,000, I'm going to show you exactly what you get for a base model family sedan with these two cars. If you're not interested in these base models, I've also compared the Accord Touring to the Camry XSE V6 if you want to see those. Well, let's go ahead and get started. Now, first of all, I want to say thank you for watching, and I got to say thank you to the places that let me take these cars out. First, with the Camry, we've got Sport City Toyota in Dallas, Texas, and with the Honda Accord, we've got Honda Cars of Rockwall in Rockwall, Texas. So if you're in the DFW area looking for either of these cars, please be sure to check them out. I'll put their information in the description below. If you want to see more comparison videos like this, be sure to subscribe and click the thumbs up button to let me know, but also be sure to check out the full reviews of each of these cars. And as we go through this, let me know down below which one you would go for. Now let's take a look at the exterior details of the Camry. So this is the base LE model, so it's a little bit toned down compared to some of the sporty models, but up front you're gonna get this large gray grille, LED daytime running lights integrated into the headlights, and standard LED high and low beams. The paint on this Camry is the Celestial Metallic, or the Celestial Silver Metallic, and it's not quite as flaky as some paints, but I think it's a nice clean look on this Camry. Let me know what you think of the design, as the design is rather unchanged compared to the last few years. Wheels on the Camry will be 17-inch alloy wheels with two 15/55 series tires, plus you'll get body color mirrors and door handles. No blind spot indicator or turn signal in those on the base model here, but the dimensions of this Camry are 192.1 inches long and 72.5 inches wide, which is right in the middle of the midsize class and very similar to the Accord. And then coming to the back, you're going to get combination, so partial LED taillights with the incandescent turn signal, and then below, nothing flashy, you get a single exhaust back here. Now moving over to the Accord, for 2021 it is slightly restyled a little bit, especially with the grille, but up front you get LED low beams but halogen high beams. So the Camry gives you full LED with the high and low beams, but the Accord gives you an LED blinker. Now this is the platinum white pearl paint, and it's a really pretty paint. Doesn't matter comparing it to the Toyota. Toyota can get a white pearly paint as well, and both look nice. It's going to give you 17-inch alloy wheels with 225/50 series tires, just a little different than the Camry. Still going to give you body color mirror and door handles as well. And dimensionally, this is 192.2 inches long and 73.3 inches wide. So same length as the Camry and just a little bit wider than the Camry here. So still a very maneuverable car. And in the back, you're going to get partial LED taillights, including LED brake lights with the LED light bars, but an incandescent signal, and then the exhaust outlets are tucked under the bumper. Now the trunk of the Camry, you can open it on the inside or with your key fob. Since we don't have a smart key system, you can't use a touchpad up under the license plate or around there, but once you get this open, you've got 15.1 cubic feet. So this is about middle range for the class. Just got a backpack right there, and it swallows that up really well. You've got some deep pockets over here, and you've even got a hook for like a cargo net or even grocery bags. You've got this on each side, so that works well. And overall, not too bad. You can fold those seats down in a 40/60 fashion to have that open. And then if we look under here, you will get a spare tire underneath of that foam. Now for the cargo area, the Accord does not have the smart key system, so there's no touchpad. You have to use the key fob or inside, but this has excellent cargo space, especially for the mid-size class. So you'll be able to tell right away looking in here just how vast and open this is. You've got really good space between here and the wheel well, so there's a lot of space on each side there. There's also a hook for groceries or for a cargo net on both sides of the trunk. And this is not a split fold right here. This is just one big seat back that folds down. So if you wanted to fit just one side of stuff, that's one way that you kind of have to sacrifice with the Accord. And the other thing is more so exposed hinges than you'll see in a lot of vehicles, but there's still a lot of space back here. And underneath of here, you've got a spare tire underneath of that foam right there with the jack. So very similar to the Camry, but 16.7 cubic feet just outdoes it, which is really massive for this. But you can't split fold the seats here like you can in the Camry. Now, as we take a look at the front and back seats of both of these cars, there is one thing, is that the Accord has more overall passenger space, about 5 more cubic feet combined than the Camry. Now, looking at the Camry seats, these are cloth seats, as you can see. I like the two-tone design right here. They've got a nice feeling to them too. It's not like a super soft, cheap, like easy to tear type of cloth either, and they just look good overall. But one takeaway is that you actually get power seats. You even get tilt adjustment, and you've got two-way power lumbar adjustment. So that's really nice that you don't always see in a base model. As far as features goes, on the base model, no memory settings, no heated seats, nothing like that. I'm still surprised you actually get power adjustment, but heated seats are optional on the Camry, but they don't come standard on this base model. And as far as comfort goes, I like the seats for the most part, but the headrest is a little bit intrusive and far forward, so that's kind of annoying. Now, these front seats in the Accord, we've got just an ivory color here. You can get ivory or black, but these are cloth as well. Same kind of durable feeling cloth. It feels nice. It feels maybe a little bit softer, I would probably say, but the bolstering is fairly similar. Now, down here is where things are different. So the Camry had power seats. These are manual seats. So you've got a manual lever in the front. This is height adjustment, so you can change the height. You just can't change the tilt and then recline. The only thing missing compared to the Camry is that we don't have the tilt adjustment and no adjustable lumbar support. But space overall is good. You'll find the Accord is very spacious. I've seen some really tall people driving these Accords. Headroom is good overall, so room is good in both cars for sure. I would say that the Accord feels more comfortable right off the bat, just because I think the seats feel a little bit softer and the headrest is not intrusive like the Camry. I have been able to spend prolonged periods of time in the Camry and I've been comfortable. I have not been able to spend prolonged periods of time in the Accord, so I can't quite vouch on that. Just like the Camry, these seats are not heated. There's no option for heating on this base model, at least in the US. Now, the back seat of a Camry has the same cloth material that you'll find up front, and it is a spacious back seat, although not a class leader by any means. So sitting behind myself at 5'9", you can see I've got pretty good knee space. I've got good foot space as well, so no problems with that sitting where I would normally sit. And then in the middle, one thing that's a little bit disappointing is that there's no air conditioning vents and no charging ports directly for your backseat passengers in this base model. There's a little bit of a hump in the middle, but you do get a map pocket over there. This does give us a center folding armrest as well with padding and some cup holders. And one bonus for the Camry is that headroom is very good. I can sit up tall, my head's not touching, my hair's not touching, so you can fit a lot of people back here pretty well. Now, the back seat of the Accord is definitely a little more on the spacious side. It's really impressive. So sitting behind myself, you can see 5'9" again, where I'm comfortable. Still good knee space. It looks very similar to the Camry, but measurably there is more space, and I'm just a little more comfortable there. There's still a hump in the middle. You've got that map pocket. There are no charging ports on here or air conditioning vents either. It's just another storage cubby, so pretty much the exact same with that. And then in the middle, there is still a storage bin or cup holders and this padded armrest, so pretty much identical to the Camry. And then sitting up tall, 5'9" again, space is good. I can feel my hair touching a little bit. Maybe it's one of those poofy days, but my head's not touching the roof. And overall, really good space back here. Definitely a little bit more space than in the Camry, but otherwise pretty much the same. Now let's take a look at the interior of both of these cars. They are similar, but have different design styles. And let's go ahead and start with the Camry. So one thing right off the bat is that you have a regular key fob right here with the flip out key. This is what's standard. You can get a smart key if you want with push button start, but this is what comes standard on here at this price. And this steering wheel is not leather wrapped. It's manual tilt and telescoping, but it's still comfortable to hold on to. It's got a little sport grip there. You've got all the necessary controls for information display and cruise control and all of that on the steering wheel, and it's still, like I said, comfortable to hang on to. Now quickly over on the door, you've got some softer material here and down here and on the armrest, so everything is a nice place to rest your elbow. Surprisingly, you actually get all one-touch automatic windows. One complaint though is that the bottle holder is not ideal. My big bottle fits, but it's just a little snug. There's one little storage cubby under these buttons here. And right in front of us, the gauges, you've got two big physical gauges there, and then you've got a smaller digital display in the middle. So this digital display is what comes standard on here. You've got your trip computer. You can do various different pieces of information from your trip computer. Then you've got driver assistant stuff on here, and any warning messages, and then you can customize some settings on here too. So no big digital display standard on the Camry, but it is optional. And then moving over, you get a 7-inch touchscreen standard with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, not wireless, but wired. And the touchscreen works well. I personally like how you have physical buttons on here, so you can actually touch real buttons, volume knob, tuning knob, all of that. It's a little bit dated in terms of its operation, but it is still functional. It's a 6-speaker system in the Camry and tablet style. So both this and the Accord kind of have a different tablet style design. And then this has all this kind of shiny piano black around, which is a little bit of a lint collector and scratch collector and just fingerprint magnet. And while we're up here, let's check out the backup camera. The backup camera standard is a little bit dull, it's not very clear, and the lines don't move. You can get movable lines optional, but they don't move and you can't change the view. And then coming down, we actually have regular manual air conditioning control. So manual control for temperature, manual control for fan speed, no automatic function on here. You can get it optional. Just below that, you've got a storage cubby with a couple of plug-ins. This can be a wireless charging mat, but standard it will not be. Then there's a little storage bin just below that. Then coming back to the cup holders, these cup holders work very well. No problems fitting anything in there, and you've got some nicer material around here as opposed to the glossy black up there. This armrest is good size, comes back quite a ways too, and you've got a regular USB and a USB Type-C charging port there, and a good size storage bin. Now up above, just a regular manual flipping mirror. Garage controls and auto dimming can be had optional, but not on our model. And then we've got a sunglass holder built in up overhead, and there's no moonroof standard on the base model. You can get it optional on this base model, but not standard. And with the visor test, so visors, you've got a vanity light, and the visor itself does not move. It's just this moving piece right here. So overall design of the Camry, let me know what you think. You've got a mix of nice and not so nice materials, but overall a useful, functional design that is easy to live with. Now the key fob for Honda is similar to their Smart key fob. No remote start on here, but it doesn't have a key physically sticking out of it. You can take one out, but the biggest difference is that instead of a key in ignition, you get push button start on the Honda. So what do you prefer, push button start or key in ignition? And right in front of us, this is not a leather wrapped wheel either, just like the Camry, it's the synthetic, but this does have some sport grips up here too, and I think the overall feeling of the steering wheel is a little bit better because it's a little bit thicker, but all of the necessary controls are on both sides, just like with the Camry. And tilt and telescoping as well, good range of motion here too. Material wise, it's just about the exact same as the Camry. The upper portion is softer. You got a hard plastic right here, but by your armrest, this is nice and soft. Good grab handle, and the front two windows are automatic one touch, but not the back two. And the storage down here is still pretty tight. It's more upright, but if I try to put my bottle in there, pretty much squeezes it to death, so it's still pretty tight. One big difference is the way that these gauges look right here. So these are digital. It's not this whole thing that is configurable though, it's just over here. So on the left, this is where you can control your trip computer and see audio and stuff like that. So it looks different than the Camry, just kind of a different total setup, but let me know which one you like better. And then coming over, again, you kind of have a tablet style screen, very similar. This is an 8-inch touchscreen, which is standard on this base model. As you can see, you get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. It's not wireless on this trim. You can go back and you kind of still have a slower, a little bit of outdated information display or touchscreen display, but you can pretty much do everything you need to. You still get physical buttons on the left and the right, volume knob and tuning knob, and this is a 4-speaker system on this base model. Now the backup camera, this is one way the Accord improves over the Camry is with this trajectory line. First of all, this trajectory comes standard on here, plus you have a wide view, a more narrow view, or a view straight down. And then down here with the climate controls, if you remember the Camry, it was a manual control to where you controlled fan speed, you controlled temperature just with the dials. Otherwise, everything else was pretty similar. This is dual zone, automatic climate control, which is standard on the base model, so you and passenger side can have different temperatures. Camry can get it, but it was not standard on the base model. So let me know what you think. Would you prefer dual zone like this, where it's automatic, or the manual controls on the Camry? And then just below there, you've got a 12-volt power outlet and 2 USB ports, and there's a pretty good little storage cubby. So both have storage cubbies. The Camry could get optional wireless charging on the base, but it didn't have it standard, and this doesn't have it either. Now, cup holders are both very good size. This and the Camry, pretty darn similar with that. We've got an economy button right here, auto stop start, and the Camry had a physical foot activated parking brake. This has an electronic parking brake, and the brake holds standard on this base model. The armrest is similar size on both. Both feel pretty darn similar. This is maybe a little bit wider. The Camry was maybe a little bit softer, but we lift this up and you've got a moving tray in here, so this can slide forward and backwards, or you can take it out, and there's a 12-volt power outlet. But both Camry and Accord have a really nice size storage bin, especially for this class. And then up above, this is the same. You still have a manual flipping mirror, no automatic dimming available on the base, or garage controls. You've got sunglass holders. And then the visor in the Camry had the slide out piece right here. The Accord, the whole visor slides. And the Camry could optionally get a moonroof. It didn't come standard on it, but the Accord does not get a moonroof on the base model at all. And overall, both are very functional interiors with good storage, good placement of buttons, ergonomics, and comfort. The design is a little bit different between the two, between the center stack and console especially, but let me know which one you like better. Now, as we go under the hood, this is where things start to really separate in terms of how similar these two sedans are. Under the hood of the Camry, you get a direct and port injected, naturally aspirated 2.5 liter 4-cylinder engine. It's going to give you 203 horsepower and 182 pound-feet of torque. The Camry is paired with an 8-speed conventional automatic transmission, and combined miles per gallon is 32, but it can get 1 mile per gallon more on the highway than the Accord can. And for fairness sake, this Camry is front-wheel drive, and so is the Accord, but the Camry can be all-wheel drive optional, where the Accord cannot, as of right now. So that could be a taking point for some of you, depending on where you are. Now, under the Accord is where things are definitely a lot different than the Camry, because we have a smaller, turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. It's a 1.5 liter 4-cylinder turbocharged engine that's direct injected with 192 horsepower and 192 pound-feet of torque, paired with a continuous variable CVT transmission. So the type of engine, naturally aspirated Camry, turbocharged Accord, continuous variable transmission Accord, regular automatic in the Camry. MPGs for the Accord is going to be a little bit more in the city at 30 miles per gallon city, 38 highway. MPGs for the Accord will be 33 combined, which is just a tick above the Camry. The Camry's a little better on the highway, the Accord's a little better in the city. The CVT transmission is a little better with the city driving versus the regular automatic. Okay, now let's get behind the wheel of the Camry first. I'm driving this one before the Accord, so I'll kind of drive the Accord and then give you my feedback compared to the Camry, or compared to the Camry when I'm driving the Accord. But first impression of the Camry is that it just has a nice soft ride. This LE has a softer suspension than some of the other SE and XSE models of the Camry, and it just feels relaxed is the best way to put it, I think. Now, it has been raining, so the pavement is wet. Hopefully it's not with the Accord, but the big difference, like I talked about with the powertrains of these two, the engine is you've got turbo in the Accord versus naturally aspirated in the Camry right here. And the transmissions are totally different too. You have a traditional stepped gear transmission in this Camry, and you've got a variable transmission in the Accord. And that makes a big difference of how it feels driving day to day. Now let's go ahead and get on it somewhat in the Camry. So we spun out a little bit because it's wet and we're front wheel drive, but you get more RPMs and you get increasing power. The handling is good in the Camry as well. It's not a sporty feeling Camry, but it feels very planted and dialed down, and it still soaks up the bumps really well, more so than the SE and XSE type of Camrys. And in terms of noise, I think they're pretty similar. I haven't been able to test the Accord's decibel ratings like I have the Camry, but the Camry does good. It's not a standout, but it's good enough for what most people are going to expect. And a little more here. If you want to know more about how it drives in detail, I've got a few videos on this Camry and a couple videos on the Accord too, where I do longer test drives. But both cars are going to give you their Toyota Safety Sense, which is the safety systems like the radar cruise control, the lane keeping system, lane centering, forward collision braking, just like the Accord. The Accord gives you that standard too. So both of them are going to give you those types of features and driver assist stuff. But overall, they're going to feel very similar daily driving on a day-to-day basis. The Camry, I would say, feels a little more laid back, a little more relaxed, but let's go ahead and hop into that Accord. All right, now we're behind the wheel of the Accord. So this is, full disclosure, this is the next day because it started pouring on me. So I don't have an instant feedback in memory of that Camry like I drove it an hour ago, but I'm gonna try to give you my best comparison possible between the two, and they feel very similar. I think the Accord maybe feels a little bit more taut, a little bit more stiff initially, and the biggest difference is going to be with the acceleration, because with the Accord, with a turbo, once you get just a little bit of throttle, a little bit of your RPMs up just a tiny bit, then you start to get some power pretty quickly, some torque. Whereas with the Camry, after you get on it a little while, then you start to get more power, kind of a buildup of power. So once we get on the open road, we'll get a little better feedback with that. But handling feels very similar. I think the Accord is probably a little bit lighter with its steering wheel. I think both feel good. The Accord steering wheel feels a little bit thicker, which I kind of like that. But otherwise, in terms of the actual handling abilities of the car, very similar. So that was just a little bit of pedal down, not a lot, because you don't really need to do a lot in order to get a good amount of power. In terms of getting on the interstate, the Camry is probably going to feel a little bit better with getting the RPMs up and really getting up to speed, but both will do just fine with that. Now, one thing I've got to say about ride comfort is that, like I said initially, I think the Accord's a little stiffer. That LE model of the Camry is pretty darn soft and quiet. When you get the SE Camry, I would probably say that the Accord is a little bit softer and the SE Camry's a little bit stiffer. But base model to base model, Camry's a little stiffer, Accord's a little bit more taut. So not a huge, or Camry's a little bit softer, Accord's a little bit more taut and stiffer. Not a huge difference though. Both are going to give you a full display of the radar cruise control, lane keeping system, like I said, behind the wheel of the Camry. But in terms of daily driving these cars, or driving them, they're comfortable. Everything's in good reach, and ergonomic wise is good with these cars. There's no wonder that they are very good selling cars. But another thing is, with the Camry, you get the automatic transmission where you got gear, gear, gear. With the Accord here, it's like sometimes it tries to mimic shifts like a regular transmission, and other times it just kind of winds up and holds that. So different feel depending on what you like with the drivetrain, but otherwise they're very similar, and I'd like to know what you guys think. And if you want to see a longer test drive, be sure to go in the description below. I've got a couple different videos driving just the Accord for longer periods of time. So to wrap things up on both of these base model sedans, the Camry and the Accord, both of them are pretty good values in terms of all the standard features that you get, the space, and the efficiency. One big difference between the two is that the Camry, its base model, still gives you a lot of available options, but then the price is going to go up, so you can get more features, but you're going to pay more, but not the way this one's dressed up. Whereas with the Accord, it's pretty much base model, that's what you get. And then you can go to the next trim level to get these other features, and the next trim level to get other features, but kind of depends. But just bare bones base models that we have, which one would you go for? The Accord gets more overall space inside and in the trunk, and a different powertrain setup, but I really don't think you can go wrong either way. Be sure to check out the full reviews of each of these cars on their own so you can decide which one you like more, and leave your comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video and you want to see more comparisons and full reviews like this, be sure to subscribe down below and click that thumbs up button. Hope you have a great day. We'll see you next time.